Went from condos to Pop's house, on calls now bus routes.
Brooklyn Williams tells me he faced not only racial slurs from two of his teammates on the Aurora University football team, but also what he considered threatening comments referencing George Floyd. He says it caused him to leave the team and the school altogether.
From his first visit to campus, Brooklyn Williams says he knew then the Aurora University football team was the dream he worked his entire life for.
I was so stuck on Aurora and like the picture they painted of the brotherhood.
But he says the reality was different.
Another teammate I had of mine came in and was like, "What are you doing sleeping here? Don't you guys sleep in trees?" In that moment, I knew it clicked that he was calling me a monkey.
That was one of the racial comments Williams says some of his white teammates made to him the night of August 21st. He says he was staying at his teammate's house to save him time commuting from school to back home.
One of my teammates had called me the N-word and was like, "You better not go in my room."
He says it escalated from racial slurs to a comment referencing George Floyd.
You took that as a threat towards you?
Yes, for my safety, because I was the only black male in that household at the time.
In the school's investigative report viewed by ABC7, Williams told investigators that another player present at the time told him that on the team, quote, "some of the guys are racist." The school's findings say there is no evidence that the complainant had any motivation to fabricate the allegations, and it is clear something significant happened.
For the first time in my life, I felt like I could not protect my child. And I've never had that feeling before.
In a statement from the school to ABC7, a spokesperson says Aurora University is deeply committed to fostering a safe, respectful, and inclusive community where every student feels valued and supported. We take any allegations of misconduct extremely seriously. They went on to say the university follows established policies and procedures when reviewing and evaluating reports such as these to ensure an expeditious and thorough review. Every report is carefully reviewed and investigated in accordance with these policies, and appropriate and responsive action is taken whenever policy violations are found. The school's report showed that the conduct is found to constitute hostile environment harassment based on race, but they would not confirm if any action was taken towards the accused students. Williams made the decision to leave the team and the school, never playing in one game.
You wrote a letter to the school. It said, "I've never experienced anything so painful. It has also cost me my education, my football career, and the opportunities I worked for."
Sometimes at night, just laying in the bed, like ask myself, am I enough? Like, did I deserve this?
These boys, they're living their American dream. While he's stuck, sad, afraid, hurt, doesn't know his next move.
The family says they're in talks with the NAACP, but with a picture of his great-grandmother around his neck, Brooklyn says he's leaning on his family for support and is determined to be back on a different field, even stronger.
No one should have to experience this. And sadly, it will continue to keep happening and happening. So that's why us as the black community has to keep speaking up about this.
The Williams family says they plan to take legal action against the school in the coming weeks.
Wow, man. So it's sad to say that this is common. This is common. This has been going on for ever since I've been going to school. So this is nothing new at all. And he took the right steps. You could tell he's a really smart young boy. He took the proper steps, the steps that he should take. I mean, look, just to be transparent with you all, when I was in high school, we weren't taking steps like this. We weren't taught that. We were taught to fight. I mean, it sounds crazy. Nowadays, we see steps like this being taken and people putting it on social media and the NAACP coming out and all of those type of things, right? When I was in high school, we just had big fights. You'll have, and I'm just telling you all the truth, right? I'm just being transparent. I'm not saying it was right, but I'm saying what went on during the time that I was in high school. But if you had anything racial happen, you'll have the white boys fighting us, the black dudes, and it would happen at lunchtime or whenever, but you'll see people running, fighting, all type of things going on. They probably didn't even know how it started, but you'll see fights like that, sometimes you'll see the blacks fight the Hispanics, or, like you saw a lot of things like this go on when I was in high school. It weren't things getting reported like, yeah, I'm going to report racial comments and, I'm not going to go to this school anymore. Nah, we was going to stay at the same school unless they suspended me or expelled me. That's what it was when we were in high school. So things are different now. And I think he took the right steps. But one thing that he said towards the end that's very true is that this is never going to end. Until the day we leave this earth, we're going to see discrimination and racism. That's not going to stop. It's not going to change, right? But he also says something that is really important as well. When these things occur, and not only when these things occur, but we need to be more united as a community and as a culture. Now, I'm going to say this, and I think this is important to hear as well. I always say, I lead with my faith first. And I lead with my race second, right? So I say that to say the focus should be us being united as one, period. Especially when it comes down to people who are Christians. So I'm always going to say, I don't know what his faith is, this young man and his family, and what the faith is of the boys who was attacking him and calling them racial slurs and everything like that. But we should always stand united when it comes down to our faith. But one thing that we have to understand as well is that when it comes down to us as a community, a lot of times we don't even stand united as a community. That's the problem. That is the problem. A lot of people from our community would listen to this and say, well, you soft, you weak. Why you didn't fight? Why you left the school? I wouldn't have let no white boys get me kicked out of, or I wouldn't let no white boys make me leave my school. What? We would have been fighting. And I get it. Like I say, in my days, when I was that age, that's what we were doing. But that isn't the right message to put out there. We should stand strong, stand united, and say, and all speak up together and say, nah, this isn't right. This is wrong. This young boy should not have had to leave his school. It's wrong. It's very wrong. That's why I say this too. That's why I'm big on diversity in schools. I don't have kids yet, but my focus would be sending my kids to a diverse school. I want to know the population at the school. That's important to me. I can't send my kids to a school where it's 1% black people there and 99% white. I couldn't do that. I need diversity. At least 10% us and 20% this race and 20% that race and 20% that race. At least break it down like that. But if something happened at that school and my son is one of the only few black people, how can we come together and let it be known that this was wrong? How? He's the only one there. It's almost impossible. So I think that's important when it comes down to parents as well. Understand when it comes down to the school that your child is going to, that's black, right? Understand what's going on when it comes down to the population. Is this a diverse school? If my son run into a situation where he feel uncomfortable because a lot of people is attacking him because of his race, are there a lot of other black people that go to that school that he could stand with and they could come together and say, nah, this is wrong. This is wrong. Let's bring this to the leaders of the school and let them know we're not going to put up with this. Something got to happen. Something got to change. What it was saying in Ecclesiastes 4:9. two is better than one because you have a better return on your labor. God didn't put us here to be separated or be alone, right? And just to be transparent, on this earth, people stand with their race. Even though that's a worldly approach, I understand that everybody isn't Christian. That's why I say that if all these individuals are Christians, then they're all completely wrong. They have to understand, as Christians, we got to stand together. It don't matter what your race is. But when you're living in the world and you don't have, you don't have God as your center, right? Then race becomes that more important for those individuals. And most people are going to take the side of their race. So I feel this young man, I feel bad for what he went through. I thought this was a very important story because this, he had to leave the school and he didn't feel comfortable, and he probably, like I said, left because he was one of the only black people there. So I feel bad for this young man, but we have to show more unity. And it's sad to say, as parents, and I try not to get too much into the conversation when it comes down to parents, but I have to say this because I think this is important. But it's sad to say, but as parents, you got to understand what school you're sending your kid to, and it can't be just because they're academics. They're in the top 5 when it comes down to their academics. When it comes down to the sports, they're in the top 10 in the state. 90% of the kids here get academic and sports, athletic scholarships. It can't be just about that. You got to look at the population as well. As parents, as black parents, you got to know what's going on in the school. Because most of the time, the schools where they're at a high level when it comes down to academics be the schools where the most racism go on at. Am I lying? Am I lying? So we have to understand that part. So I think parents need to pay attention to that just as much as they're paying attention to how is this school academically? How is the athletic program here? You got to pay attention to, when it comes down to the population, how many black children go to this school? That's just as important. That's just as important. So shout out to this young man for telling his story. I think that's very big and bold of him. And hopefully, man, he find a school that he could fit in. And this is probably going to be something that bother him because this became national news. So hopefully he find a situation that works for him. And hopefully as black people and the black people that's around him come together and let it be known that this is wrong. And we're going to make sure that we protect this young man and see him go into a situation that fits him to where he could feel totally comfortable.